There's a new think tank called the Rivonia Circle. It promises to be a space that will produce bold and much needed ideas and solutions for challenges facing South Africa. From slow economic growth, glaring inequalities, rampant corruption, it's clear that South Africa needs to take bold steps towards resolving the deepening crisis. This platform promises to be more than just talk. Let's look at how with co-founder of the Rivonia Circle Songezo Zibi. Songezo, thank you so much for your time. There's been so many think tanks, Songezo. How will this be different?
Thanks for inviting me. So this will be different for three reasons quickly. The first one is that we are quite happy to start on a clean slate in terms of what we imagine should be possible. We believe that aspects of South Africa's political system and the state as a whole are broken and need reform. So political and state reform will be a significant part of that. The second thing is that there is a lamentation that we have good policies but bad with implementation. So we're going to have a very strong leadership development element. The cohort that is in the 20s, another cohort in the 30s, and another one who are in their 40s. And lastly, we're going to do something that think tanks just don't do, which is to bring complicated policy conversation and simplify it and take it to ordinary people. So we're not just going to sit here in Gauteng. We're going to go to all the 9 provinces, to secondary and even smaller towns out there, so that we can gain an understanding of what the micro issues are that manifest as a result of the macro problems we have, but also have conversations about what interventions are appropriate so that we can scale them up in other parts of the country.
And Songezo, one of the things that has been quite clear has been that we've been seeing government departments almost like operating in silos, despite some of the measures that have been put in place, different programs to try and help them to merge. But they're simply not speaking in one voice, and it almost looks like they form part of different governments. I wonder if this is going to be part of what you're looking into as well, because it's not only the implementation of policy, but the synergy that also needs to exist within the government departments.
Absolutely. In fact, it's not just government departments. There is an even bigger disconnection between the 3 spheres of government: national, provincial, and local. And if one is a citizen in a town, in a small town, or is a community group or an NGO, you really have to have the means to communicate with a multitude of agencies and departments across the 3 spheres of government in order to solve the problems of one community. That's a broken system. What we're doing, we're making people work extremely hard and have resources in order to be heard and to get the accountability they should get in as simplified a form as possible.
And Songezo, I wonder how much of a role is going to be played by this, this circle that you're forming, because one of the things that I saw when I was even listening to the launch and some of the videos is the accountability that you talk about that is going to be important. I can't help when I think accountability, but think back to the Seriti Commission, for example, whose findings are still have not been implemented. I'm thinking about the Marikana Commission, whose findings are still, some of them lurking up there. You're also thinking about PPE corruption that we saw even last year. I can only just name these few, and there's a lot more. How are you going to be ensuring that some of these, reports that we're seeing in the public domain that need to ensure accountability are actually put to what they need to be, in practice? Because we're seeing a lot of talk, a lot of money being squandered when it comes to these commissions, and very little progress is being made.
Yeah, look, what we're planning to do is to make sure that we produce ideas about a redesign of aspects of the state so that you can have that accountability. For instance, the electoral reform discussion is only being discussed in the context of the court order. That's not what it should be about. It should be about rebalancing the scales away from party political bosses back onto the people, which means we need to have an electoral district system, because once you have that, it is possible for ordinary citizens to go to their district representative and say, I want you in parliament to raise this issue with a particular committee, and I want to see some accountability from the ministries that were supposed to make sure that there's action from these commissions. Right now, if you ask the majority of South Africans who their MP is, they genuinely don't know. And that can't be a system that's acceptable in a democracy.
And Songezo, as a final question, very briefly, I want to stay with what you've just spoken about, because it doesn't look like in fact, a lot of people understand the power that they have as citizens, especially because you look at some who have become somewhat apathetic and don't really understand the power that lies within their hands. I wonder how you're going to be doing this as a think tank, especially for those that may not necessarily have the power of social media in their hands?
So that is why our intention is to go and hold the so-called town hall meetings in communities out there and make sure that the complicated things they hear about are simplified as much as possible so that they can understand the gist of it and what opinions they can form out of that. And also to the extent that they then want to communicate and interact with certain authorities, whether it's political or state authorities, they know exactly what to say. Right now, we have an information asymmetry where citizens have as little information as possible, and therefore they can't keep their political and administrative agents accountable at all.
And Songezo, I've just been told it's every anchor's dream to be told that you can ask one more question just before you go. One of the things that has really been apparent for me when I was, listening to the launch of this particular initiative is how it's not accidental how the name Rivonia Circle was chosen.
Yes, thank you. Let me talk about that very quickly. There really are two main reasons why we chose Rivonia Circle, those two words. We're intentional about it. Rivonia, because we are inspired by the Rivonia trialists. In particular, the idea of doing something big for the good of all of society, even if it feels far-fetched until it happens. We committed to that. The second thing is that in Africa, a circle represents a dialogue where people get together to think about and solve the problems of their community. And that is why we've named it the Rivonia Circle.
All right, Songezo, it looks like we're going to have quite a lot of conversations as you are hoping to be starting this conversation and really getting a lot of us talking about what exactly is going on. Thank you so much for your time. That was Songezo Zibi.